Welcome to the Low Code Cafe. This is episode number 175 for November 2024. Today we're going to finish up on newsletter creation using newsletter templates. Yeah, we'll get into that shortly. But first, let me introduce myself. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plant and App, joined today by Patrick Anderson. He'll help keep me on track. This is a bi-weekly event that we do on Wednesdays, this hour, 10 a.m. Central Time. And we invite you to attend each and every one of them because we try to put some great content in. And then when we get it done, we take the recordings, put them on our YouTube channel. You can access that at youtube.com/plantandapp, and all 174 previous episodes are out there. Today, we're going to run this agenda where I'll do a brief from the trenches of support segment, and then we'll spend the most of our time on hands-on low coding. I do intend to finish the episode today, and so it's possible we could run a couple minutes over, but hang in with us or catch it in replay. But we target for going for an hour. Do engage with us though. You can use the chat window or the question and answer. If you have questions, we would love to answer them along the way. As I mentioned, we do this bi-weekly, every other week. So the next live webinar is scheduled for November 20th. All right, let's do support. We are currently working on version 1.26, and that was released on June 14th of this year, and there are hot fixes. I'm going to try to bring them up and we can show. But week by week, we take a look at the hot fixes that have been published. And so let me log in on the system and we'll do that. So this system I patch week by week, or episode by episode, so that you can see the process and what's available. So since we last got together, the hot fixes, which are available under configuration updates, we can look at hot fixes, and there are a couple. If you click details, you can learn more about what those are. So there was a small bug that was fixed. If you used the drop down, there's a parameter that drop down with checkboxes that allows you to set the maximum number of selections that you can accept, and it wasn't obeying that. So now this keeps users from exceeding that. So you're welcome to install this, or if you don't need it, you can leave it. But just a reminder, before we go on to the next version, all the hot fixes will need to be installed, but you can save that for that upgrade time if you don't need a hot fix. We've also done some work in calendar view. So if you're using the calendar view in listings, you can get this update that will do things with allow you to manipulate, do some JavaScript on event clicks. So those are the areas that have been improved, and we'll set that aside. Our next version is version 1.27. It is targeted for release or at least beta in January. I wanted to take a look at, we have, this learn, plantandapp.com as where our documentation is located. And in the important notes section, we have this compatibility page. And I just wanted to call attention to it that this tells all of our previous, or at least our recent releases, and when they were released and when they're supported through version 1. We support each version for at least a year. And so that's what's reflected here, that, for example, version 1.25 was released in May of 2023. And it was supported through November of 2024. So only 1.26 falls within this window. If you're running a version previous to this, we would encourage you to find previous to 1.26. we would encourage you to schedule a time and get an upgrade completed. All right. Beyond that, we would encourage you to engage in Low Code Campfire. That's the event that we do every Friday, this same hour, and that's more of a conversation between us and our clients. Really great content ends up coming out of that. People get their questions answered, and we get feedback on the product. It's really win-win, and I can't encourage you enough to be part of that. So look for the link for Low Code Campfire, and that's really it's one of the links here that Patrick is going to post on the webinar chat, where you can register in advance for it, where you can get to our recordings or our community portal. Community portal has another place to ask questions of the community. Perhaps something isn't directly a support issue, but you're wondering how community might, someone else might have solved a problem. That the community portal is a great place to post those. And also you can help out there, answer other people's questions. There's a webinar feedback form, so if you have comments on this webinar, you can click in there and tell us what you thought. Today, during the hands-on low coding section, we're going to talk about, or at least mention, the drag and drop functionality, which we've covered at least once before in an episode of, I think it was an episode of this Low Code Cafe, but you can both see a document that explains how to go about this, provides a template for the SQL that you're going to need, or if you're doing a SQL table for drag and drop reordering of rows. And then also the YouTube where we've discussed it previously, so you can look at those two resources and learn more about drag and drop. All right, so we've saved most of our hour here for talking about the main topic, creating publications. We're using templates and AI to do newsletters. So by way of a quick overview of what we were trying to do, we set as a goal that we were going to create newsletters and content for newsletters and build them up into something that's ready to be emailed. We're not actually worrying about emailing out of this, although we might get to a test email. But the idea is we want to have a nicely formatted newsletter. The key concepts are that we have these three main entities: content, stuff that goes into the newsletter; templates, how that newsletter gets presented; and then a publication that has additions. So if the thing that we're doing is the Plant an App newsletter, and then the newsletter will have that main publication will have the first edition and the second edition, and week by week or month by month as we publish them, each one will be a separate edition that draws from the content and the template to lay them out. So that's where we're going. And the main concept then is that content is injected into a template and is built up into an edition. Pretty easy stuff to do with low code, and so that's what we're going to talk about. These that I've highlighted in Plant an App blue-green are things that we've already done. So we spent a lot of time last 2 weeks ago creating the entities, so an entity for content. We also spent some time using our Bazinga AI product to explode or nicely format from raw content into a nicely formatted output. And so we did, as an example, a healthcare article. And then we also created templates, and we had templates, and we created some content, some templates, and then we started our basic newsletter. And so this is in the white where we're going to take off here in a minute. I think it's useful to show you where we're going, and so I have that here. So we have these elements, the contents. So I've got some articles like one about our healthcare solution. And if we look at the details for that, we can see that there's a medium summary, a long summary, a full content of the article. We have the ability to add some links. So a link that says learn more and pointing to a URL where that link is supposed to go, an image for it, which we got off of our site, or rather where the image is going to, and then the source of that image, which is an image off the site. So content is all about the things that you want to put into the newsletter. We built templates, and so the template has a header and a footer, and then components, and then publications. So we have a Café demo publication here, and within that there's an edition. We called it the demonstration issue, and this is what it looks like right now. It's got a title and somewhat nicely formatted article. And then this is really, we're getting down to the area of what we're going to build today. So we have an available content listing. It shows what can be added. And so, and then a selected content, what's in there already. And so, for example, if I wanted to add the healthcare solution article to my content, I can add it to the edition. It now shows up as selected content. The template that's going to be used, it's starting out with a default template, but we're going to add a selection to say that I want a template called left title, right article, and that was defined in our templates. And we're going to have the ability to drag things around like this. So we can make the healthcare solution item show up on top, followed by the DNN Summit information. We go to preview and generate preview. We see our healthcare content followed by our DNN content. If we drag and drop and reorder this to make DNN Summit come first, when we generate, now we see DNN Summit first and the second article second. We could add as many articles and in as many formats as we want. So that's where we're going. If anybody has any questions about that, I'd love to entertain them. But that's where we're going, and that's where we'll get to today. So this website here, the one I was just showing you was my preparation site. This is where we left off, exactly where we left off when we finished last week. All right, so let's dig in and find the things that we need to do. We had done some templates. We created the templates, and I wanted to work a little bit more on templates because I hadn't, I really didn't anticipate the right way that these templates, we're using tokens to expand them, and I'll show you that in a minute. So I want to get the tokens set up correctly for use, and then we'll do the header and the footer as well. So let's take a look. We go into our templates. We have the basic newsletter, and the basic newsletter has two components to it. One is the default, which is just showing the title and the subtitle. And then we have another one called title, which shows the title, the subtitle, and the full content of the article. We can rename these. I don't know if I like the name title, but maybe we'll call this basic article. So I'm going to dig into this and we'll edit it. And this is in HTML, so you got to know a little bit of HTML to succeed at this. I'll show you some shortcuts, but here's the changes to the tokens I wanted to make. When I did this originally, I was presuming that all the content was going to be coming out of our content entity, and yet we might want to pull the name of the edition or the name of the publication or other things like that. So we'll add some prefixes here that will help us. So this is going to be pulling from the content because the content has a title and a subtitle. And so we're using the colon structure. So when we prepare to work with these templates, if we've retrieved the content object that has title and subtitle and full content, that expanding these tokens will happen quite automatically, and we won't have to do much work at all. So those things are all coming from content, and so that's just a quick update there. And then if I go back and look at my components, the other thing is this one here, same thing, that we want to edit this and change it to the content title and subtitle. Within our template, we just left some placeholders for the header and the footer, the things that are going to be at the front and the back, but I want to now fill that in. So I'm going to do a little copy and paste work here. We'll explain it. So the header is going to have something like this, where I've got a div that's going to be centered. I'm using the H2 format, whatever that is, but it's a little bit bigger. H1 is the biggest, H2 is slightly smaller, and so on. So we're using the H2 format to show the publication name and the edition name, closing out the H2 tag, closing out the div tag, and then I'm drawing a horizontal line. So that's the going to be the header of our newsletter article. And then I'm going to pop a footer in here as well. At the end, I'm going to draw another horizontal line, and I'm throwing in the published date as a date time now. This could be more advanced and nicely formatted, but I just wanted to provide real content to demonstrate headers and footers. All right, so we've gotten through this far then. We've updated our templates to use these prefixes, and we've set the header and footer. One thing I realized from last time is that our entities, one of our entities is entity content. Again, I would encourage you to go back and look at edition content. I would encourage you to go back and watch the previous episode. We really spent a lot of time developing the entities for this episode. And I realized that I didn't do the edition content quite right, so we're going to go in and fix that. In entities, in edition content, what I did wrong was I have the name of for edition content is supposed to be the thing that provides a join between the edition and what content gets added. And I had the spot to do the name of something, but what we really need is the content itself, which is linked through. It's an item of type. It's an entity of a content entity. So this says this will be an ID that gets put here, but it provides a direct link to the content itself. So that was a mistake I made, and I am going to rearrange this to be higher in the list. And we don't really need the name anymore. The name is going to come from the content of the item. It's not going to let me delete that until I make something else be the display name. So I've made rank be the display name. That's the hyperlink, and then I can delete out name. Save that change and merge them. So yeah, if you're, again, that's just a mistake that I made last time, and we cleaned that up. So we're in the spot of having wanting to do content selection and find the available content. So let's find our spot in the site. This is, we're going into a publication and looking at an edition. Within an edition, we're we I'm sorry, this is the we're looking at the detail of the publication. We want to open up an edition and work with it. So we have so far we started the available content. This is, and I'm going to open this, by the way, the clicking the mouse wheel or the third click button is a nice way to open up something in a new tab without having to navigate to that. So I'm doing that there to open this up. The data for this is all of our contents. Every bit of the content is available for us to select in this available content listing. And then we're just showing the content. So we've gotten that far where we're showing the content, and the idea is that we want to be able to select that. Now let me get to that spot on my prepared system. So what we're going to want to do, and maybe it's on my roadmap here, is we have this already, the listing to show the edition, the available content. Oh, we've added a listing to the edition detail. Yep. So what we want to do is add a root button, an idea, some way to go from this information and get it into selected content. And that is the edition content. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to add a button up here that says add to edition. And then maybe another one we'll do first is the ability to see what's in this content. So if we're looking at this and we see these titles, we want to explore that a little bit. So let's add a little bit more details. So this is the available content listing. If we can add some fields to this, and all the content fields are here because it is the content listing. All right. So if we want to show the full and all these links and images, all this stuff that might be useful, we don't need to create it by, we can add those to our output fields. The problem is that this would quickly overflow. If we just showed this in the listing, well, I'll show you the problem. We've added all these fields and then we display it. And now there's so much content here that it's very hard to read. So all this additional content, we're going to move into only make it visible on the detail view. So I'm going to turn it off for our other formats. And so we've put it onto the listing. Now we're taking it off of the basic listing. And we're going to, in a minute, display it in a detail view. So we take it off each of these fields, and then the full content is actually HTML. So I want it to display in HTML. So I'm going to click the allow HTML. Okay. So having done that, if we refresh the screen, now we go back to getting all those off of here. So they're in the listing, but they're not being displayed. How do we display them? Well, under the buttons, we're going to add an item button, and there's a special button. We can use this to do it if we want to, that displays inline details. So it's going to be a details button. How do we want it styled? Well, maybe we'll make it be a primary button. I might want to use the binoculars as a nice icon for this. And it added here for us a custom detail view where we could build our own view. I don't want to go to that effort, so I'm going to delete that out and add a detail view action. And this just lets me say right sidebar and details. I can give it a title. All the fields that were marked as to show on the detail view are now going to show automatically. So with that much effort, we can refresh. Now we have a details button with binoculars. If I click it, it opens out. We can see the new fields we added, the full content, um, the links, which are empty. We haven't done those yet. And notice that this is coming out in HTML because we checked that HTML box. It comes out nicely formatted. So very simple. We added the details button, and I'll just show you a trick too. Uh, we can we don't have to have a title. So we do have to have an ID. So I'm going to uncheck this so it has the name, the ID of details, but we can get rid of this and just do it by way of an icon. So with that little change, now the details button shows up just as an icon. Probably useful as a best practice in your buttons to say help text and whatever you put. Again, need to refresh to get that to happen, but very useful to um, include help on your buttons so that people know what's going to happen when you click it. And again, best practices for color. This is a low impact action that's just going to show you something. If this was a delete action, you'd probably pick one of the other colors by way of the choices on the button instead of saying that it's a outline primary. Maybe you'd say outline danger or warning. It would give different colors. All right. So we have our details button that's improved product already. So the next thing we want to do is an add to addition button. We're going to put that right up here to the top right. And the idea for the add to addition button is that it's going to do some actions that make this be selected, and then we'll be able to have a selected grid. So let's see what that's going to look like. This is going to be a root button. It's not tied to the row, but rather either to the top or bottom. And again, I need to have my cheat sheet up here so I know what I'm doing. Thought through all this yesterday. It's good to have a plan before you get to the cafe. All right, so the button is we'll add it here, and we're going to call it add to edition. That will be the title that appears on the top. And I would like this to appear on the top and to the right. And the style that I think I'm going to give to this is kind of a primary button, something that people would normally do. And maybe we can select an addition that an icon rather that is like a plus sign. Sure, it doesn't. I'm not the best at design, but having a little visual indication of what it's going to do that's got a plus sign on it. And then we want to enable selection. The idea is that people are going to select from content and add it as a selected content. So they're going to have to pick something. This is going to give us the checkbox to the left of every item. And this is only going to run, they're only going to be able to do this button if they've selected something. And we'll go ahead and show the count as well. I'm not going to go any farther than that. We'll add some actions in a minute, but I want to show you the progress that we've made. So when I refresh this, we now have the add to addition button with the plus sign, We can't click it, it doesn't do anything, but we also have these selections here. And as soon as we do, we start seeing the quantity and we can click the button. It doesn't, again, the button doesn't do anything. We haven't added any actions yet, but that's what's next. So let's get it done. This kind of when you activate something for selection, you get actions, which happen first, per item actions that happen next, final actions all at the end. So the per item happens once per every item that was selected. So let's see what we need to do. In order to do what we need to do, we need to have access to the addition information so that we can, let's see, what are we going to use that for? We need to know we're going to need to know the default template. That's what we're going to need to know. Yep, we're going to need to know the default template. So we've got to go from our addition and get the default template, and so we're going to do that. So the first thing is that we want to add a read addition action. The addition ID that we want to read is the one that's up here in our query string. We have an addition ID in the query string, and it's 1 in this case. And so we want to use the get functionality, get addition ID. That'll take it off the query string, and that's the one that we'll read. And then the output we're going to do from this is, I'll call it addition. So this reads all the fields from that particular addition. The next thing that we want to do is I don't think we have this yet. I'm going to save this much and take a look at what we have. Yep, there's a workflow that I didn't make note of, and we need to build it first. So the idea is we need to be able to get a template component based on the name. Let's see what this does. Okay. We're going to switch over to workflows for a minute and build the thing that we need in this spot in the program. It's a new workflow, and the name of it is get template component by name. We're going to pass it as input the I think I did this the hard way, but we'll see. It's going to have two inputs. One is called template, and it is of type template. And the other one is the template name, which is going to be some text. And the output of this thing is going to be a component ID. This is just going to get us from a template to a component. And so let's do some process. The process is that we need to do a SQL query. And we'll come back to that in a second. And that's all we're doing. We're going to run a SQL query. The SQL query that we're doing, and I'm going to do this, I think, 3 times in this episode, is meaning it's something that I've prepared in advance. And the idea here is that we have the standard pattern of list of, so that when you have a um, templates are related to components by way of a list of, so templates have a list of components. There's a join table that's created automatically, and I've done the SQL to go through the join table to get to the template component. And all of this requires that we've got a couple of variables. I've got it in this where clause. We need to pass the template ID and template name in. So kind of beyond this query you can see completely here. I'll show it to you. But and you could copy this if you're following along, but um, it's beyond the scope to try and go through all of this SQL. So we have these two parameters that this query expects, the template ID, and then it also expects template name. And so we got to provide those two things. And one is coming from our input. It's the template ID. So we're providing the ID from our input side. And then same way, the template name is also coming from our inputs, and we can use our quick select to be able to get to that. The output that we're going to get from this is it's giving us these four things, and really the one that we're after is component ID. So I am going to bind this as an extract column, getting the component ID and storing it to the component ID token. And then the output, oh, I have it here. I never clicked. Good. Okay, so the output that we want is we're going to take the component ID token and output it as a component ID. All right. Let's see what we get out of all this. We can pick a template. We can look for default, and it tells us that that's component ID 1. The idea here, what we're trying to get to is we're setting a rule that um, every template must have a template name, a component named default, and that's just what's going to get assigned automatically. But we needed to be able to look up the template by default. This could have been implemented a different way, but we're looking it up by name. So we're getting whatever the default template is, and now we're able to know what its ID is. All right. So back to where we were. We're working on the newsletter available content. We were trying to work on our add to edition button. I'm going to refresh this so that it knows about the work that I just did. We're on add to edition. We were reading edition. And we're now going to use that workflow that we just created. So we could say add, and it's either down here in our workflows section, or we can just call it out by name, which is template by component by name. The template that we're working from is coming from edition. So we had previously read edition, and from the edition template, we want to find the default template. And this is going to give us a component ID of, we're going to store it in default component. So providing it with the word default, and it's going to come back with 1 or whatever the default component is. So all this is just to look up our default component. Finally, to per item actions. The main thing that we want to do is we're going to create new edition content. The edition ID. So now it's fill in the blank. When edition content is related to edition by this edition ID, it's the same one that we used here. So we can copy and paste that. So it's going to get created with the edition ID, the content that we are adding is the one from our listing. It's on here as ID. I didn't add it, but it's available as a field. Everything has an ID. I'll go ahead and add it here so it's visible. But that's the ID that we are adding. So we'll just do ID. By default, I'm going to add this to the end of our list. These are going to be in order from low numbers to high numbers on our selected content. So I'm going to start out with just adding it to the end of the list. They'll get renumbered as we get into that section. The component that we're going to use is this default component that we did all that work for to find. So we will paste it here. This output token is the record ID of this newly created edition content, but we don't need it, so I'm just going to leave that unwired. After we've added all of these, we're going to do a couple of things. We want to refresh the available content listing, not here, final actions. So refresh our available content listing. In a minute, we'll have a selected content listing. We'll come back here and add that, refresh that one as well. And then, yeah, we're going to want to change tab. I haven't built that tab, so we can't do that. We'll come back here and do some more work. So now let's see what this is going to do for us. We have this add to edition button. We're going to try it out in just a second. But I am going to look at, in our entities, I'm going to bring up the edition content so we can see this at work. So edition content currently has nothing in it. We'll use our button and see if it adds. So we're going to add DNN Summit 2025, add to edition. And now we can come to edition content here and refresh and see that it's added it. It's added it with this very high rank, and it's added it with the default template component. So it's done the job. It's added to issue number 1. It's done what we expect. Edition content, we can also use the select all button and add to edition. And edition content, you can use the same content more than once in our edition contents. So we could have, for example, up at the top of our article, a very short blurb saying inside this is our DNN Summit 2025 article, and then we actually use the article in full later on down. So we can have the same article used in different ways in the same issue. Anyway, we've got them selected. So our button worked, and that gets us through available content. But now we need, in a nice user interface, to be able to select the content. And so that's what we're going to do next. So this, anytime you're going to make your own listing and add it to one of these, to one of our details page, it's like a couple of steps. One, we're going to add the listing. The other is that we're going to add it as a tab. So normally what I do is create the listing first, and then we'll add it as a tab to be able to get to it. So we're adding a module. A listing is also known as action grid. So we're going to drop an action grid somewhere on this page. Doesn't really matter where, because It's going to get relocated up into a tab in a minute. Um, the list, and I'm just going to give it some basic configuration, and then we'll move it up into the tab. So we'll do an initial configuration. The data for this is going to come from our edition contents, the thing that we just started building. We want this to show in order by rank because we want things in order, so we'll do it in order by rank. And we only want the ones from our edition. So I'm using a filtering here, and I'm going to add a where clause bind token for edition to be that same get edition ID that we've been using. This is coming off the query string. Well, we're not. It's not this one. Sorry, I'm somewhere else. But we're going to get the edition ID and then use that to filter our edition contents. So this is very quickly gets us to our list of contents, and we're going to call this the um, selected content. We'll add some basic fields here so we can see that it worked. So we'll add the ID and the rank and I want the component name and maybe the content name. Some of these are a little bit hard to find. Sometimes it's easier to just search for it like that. And I'm also going to get the content title. So we'll add all these things. I'm going to rearrange them a little bit. I like the ID to show up first. The component, I want it to be just called component, not a big long template component name. The content name, I'm just going to call it name. And content title, I'm just going to call it title. But we have all these. So this gives us some data that we can at least work with. So we'll save that much and go back to our page. One fun thing that happens all the time is that when you're editing something and adding a listing for the first time, maybe you lose context and you have to go back in again, or you could even back up to it. But I'm going to go back in again and look at our publications, editions. And so now we're back in with a edition ID. And so now we have our selected content. It's able to filter it correctly because it has edition ID. It has those three things that we added a minute ago with our button. So now we just need this to show up as a separate tab instead of just floating off in space here. That can be done by editing our tabs. And we're going to add a selected content tab. So new tab, selected content, and we're going to use the selected content listing to display it. And that's it. By creating a tab and adding it, we'll refresh the screen. This now shows up as selected content, and it's here. So let's clean up our button a little bit on our available content. We can do some nice tricks now. On our button where we added it to the edition, there's these couple of final things that would be nice. We can refresh listing. We can refresh this new selected content. So we added content to it here. This is going to get it to show up immediately because we trigger a refresh. And then the other thing that we can do is change tab, stop execution. So we want to change tab using our tabs module. We'll go right to the selected content. So this provides a nice user experience. When we select something, it automatically does what we want. So we're on available content. Let's say we select this. We've got our selected content. Notice Plant and App Healthcare is on here just once. We're going to select that same article and add it again. But now it switches to that tab and goes there and refreshes. So it's a nice user experience. We selected it and now it shows up in selected. Great. So now let's go back to our roadmap here a little bit. On our selected content, I said that we might want details, but I don't, what we really need, and thinking about what we just took care of, we've gone from having available content, being able to select it, but maybe we want to remove it, and that's the thing that I think is useful next. We change our mind, we don't want it there. So I'm going to open up our selected content listing and we'll work with it a little bit. We'll add a button. It's an item button that says remove. And we can make this, as we talked about, maybe the style of this thing is danger. You know that something's going to get deleted just because it's going to give us a different color. Maybe we make a trash can. So we've got a trash can icon that we put on it. That's going to give us some warning. If we really want to, this is not very destructive, so I'm not going to ask for confirmation, but we could say, are you sure? The actions that we want to take here is that we want to delete some addition content. And addition content has an ID. Here it's a unique ID that's already in the listing, so we can just do that. And then we want to do a data source refresh to make our listing reflect the deletion. So data source refresh. We don't have to pick anything else. It'll just do it automatically. So very quickly, we can add delete functionality. We'll just refresh here and see what this looks like. So if we only needed one of the healthcare, we can hit remove and it goes away. It's no longer here. It's very easy to remove all of these. And now we have available content. Maybe we want to add the summit and add to edition. So very easy to add and remove. This is obviously one of many ways that you could make this happen. So now I mentioned earlier we're going to do drag and drop, and I want to show you it's really it's both easy and complex. So we'll get that to happen. This is going to be related to our selected content listing, which we already have here. In the settings, there is at the bottom something called drag and drop actions. And if you click the box, that in itself is going to activate drag and drop. But there's, and I'll show you that, but there's also a spot to add actions. And you're responsible for responding to the drag and drop. And so we'll show you that in a second. So I've activated it. Once I activate it, we get these handles and it gives the ability to move things around. But it's happening visually and but we're not doing anything to the data. What we're going to do is add some SQL that's going to automatically take the way that the listing is, what the changes that you make to the listing and change this rank. And then the change to the rank is going to make the change that you're doing permanent. So this is the part where we are going to do a SQL query. Let me find it. And it's, again, beyond the scope today of coming up exactly with this query. I'll show it to you. And this is going to be a SQL action, or SQL query action. And paste the query here. And I'll finish it and then I'll explain it. So this query uses a bind token called addition. So we'll bind the addition And again, this is that same get edition ID, getting it off the query string. And everything else is self-contained. So let's start with the instructions. When you activate this, it gives you a token called previous field name and field name. And we're not in hierarchy view, so we don't get future. But you'll see us use these using field names and previous field name. So let's take a look at it. There's this previous ID. So this is saying if the ID ahead of where you dropped this thing is empty, they've moved it to the very top. And so we're going to set its rank. We're going to update the edition content rank for the one that was moved. We're going to update it to 0. If they moved it anywhere else, we're going to do some fun SQL, and this was developed by a client and is provided in the link that we put on the text on the chat earlier. But the end result is that we're setting the rank of the thing to whatever the rank was before plus a fraction. And so this gives basically it's saying wherever you dropped it, we're going to put it in the right spot in the sequence. But then whatever else we do, this bottom part says that we're going to renumber everything from 1 to whatever the highest is. And so there's some nice SQL here that does the renumbering. And so with just that SQL in place, and we run, there's one more thing I want to do before we do this. We want to refresh the data source. Data source refresh. So that after it's done its recomputation, we get to see the result. So let's see what happens now. Basically, when we drag something around, watch these numbers. We're dragging this to the top, and now the number, everything got renumbered 1, 2. And so now we have permanent reordering. So the first part is visual reordering when we move things around, but then the SQL takes over, does some renumbering so that the sort, which is applied to rank, automatically keeps these things in area in order. So let's add a few more records here. And so we have more selected content. And if we drag this one around up to the top, it renumbers everything. And so now it lets us keep things in the order that we want. So drag and drop, a nice feature, very useful. I'm making note now, we're coming to the end of our original hour, and this is going to be a marathon session because I'm going to finish this today. And so you're welcome to come back and listen to it on YouTube. Okay, the next thing that, so now that we can get things in order and we can move them and select them, it's now time to start using them. So I'm going to do a new thing. This is, we're going to add a preview tab and a preview form. Let's get that done. The idea of the preview form is it's going to have a button that lets you generate the content. And so here we go. Same pattern as before. We're going to add a form onto this page. And this is a tool. This time it's a form, not a listing, because we just want, it's more about display. Got to put it somewhere on the page. Doesn't really matter where, because in a minute it's going to get moved. We manage this thing and we'll give it a basic design. So this is going to be called our preview form. It'll be a blank form. Preview form. And I'm just going to add a static text field to say just so we can see it, and I'm not going to do anything more, just so we can get it positioned where we want to, and then we'll advance it. So again, we've lost our context because of placing that. So we'll navigate our way back in. So we'll go to publications and into our editions and into our editions. Patrick has a nice, better way to where we can make that refresh, I think, and maybe we'll cover that in another episode. So now we have our preview form. It's showing out of place. We really want a tab that says preview. So we'll create a tab and do that. Tab, preview, display the preview form. We've created it, put it in place, and now it's ready for us to do some work. So I'm going to open the preview form here, a second tab, so we can do things. I'm going to name this. I'm going to call this the preview and get rid of our hello. That was just a placeholder. And I'm going to create some events that will, when this is loaded, automatically load our preview to start with. So the preview is going to be stored on our edition. So we will read the edition. The edition comes from, again, the same get of edition ID. And the output token is whatever I want to call it, but I'm going to call it edition. And then I'm going to use a create update tokens to set the preview. Preview is going to be, just steal my HTML here, from the edition record. There's a field that we created called final publication HTML. So we're going to display the HTML and then a line, and then I've added an edition last modified date just for the purposes of the preview. I thought that would be nice. And so with just that much, and now when we refresh this, instead of it saying hello, it's going to say blank as of blank. We haven't ever updated that data out of the edition, so it's not showing much. But as we start to update it, it will. All right. So let's add a couple of buttons to this that'll be useful in a minute. We'll have to fill in the blanks as we go because we've got some other workflow work to do. But one thing is we're going to want to generate preview. And so that's going to be one button, and then we'll add another one that's going to be test. From a layout perspective, I want these to be on the top. So gather them together and move them above the preview. So we can take a look at what we got. So now in our preview, we have some buttons that don't do anything yet, and then the layout, which doesn't have anything. So now we got to breathe some life into these buttons. Sticking with our roadmap a little bit. Yeah, we'll have to come back to that one. We did the drag and drop, and we're starting on our edition preview. We've got our preview form. We've done this pre-init event, and we've got a couple of buttons, but now we got to do the work. And there's two workflows that we're going to do. The first one is get the publication from edition. This is I told you we had 3 different times we're going to use this pre-built SQL, and this is the first of those. So this is a workflow. Get publication from edition. So as inputs, we're going to take in an addition, which is of type addition. The output that we're going to send out is the publication ID. And we're going to create a token or a variable called publication ID that's going to get output. For usefulness for us, I'm going to also output the publication name. And this isn't required for what we're doing, but it'll help illustrate that it worked correctly. So we're going to get two outputs. How are we going to do that? Well, again, it's a run SQL query. Using the list of pattern that I've mentioned before. So we're going from the addition out through the through the table that gets created automatically when you do a list of entities. So from publication to addition, there's this publication addition additions table. You can do the research on this. If you look in the SQL query, you can see exactly how these are get created if you're following along. And then we'd be able to join from the publication addition additions table to the publication. So it gives us access from between an addition and a publication. Our design is that there's really only going to be one additions are going to be connected to one publication. So this is going to return one record, but we do need to bind it to the addition. Oops. Copying too much there. The addition is going to be bound to the addition that came in from our inputs. The result of this thing, we're going to extract some columns again. We have a publication ID that we're going to extract as publication ID. So that's how that gets filled in. Then we have this other one, name, that we are going, that column, name column is going to go out as publication name. This matches exactly our outputs. So this should give us what we need, put an end on it, and we can try it out. So if we have an addition and click on it, it gets us the publication name, issue 01, and it gets us the publication ID, which is the main thing that we needed, the ID. So this is working, and that is going to help us get from an addition to a publication. Nice. This is the interesting workflow. This is where it all comes together, the generate addition preview workflow. So the idea is that we're going to be able to pass it an addition and get it to generate the whole thing, putting it all together. So this is the main one to look at. So let's get that done. We're going to do a workflow. It's a new workflow, and it's going to be called Generate Addition Preview. Since it does all this work, at the very end of this, we go back to our Generate Preview button. We'll just be able to point to this workflow, and all the work will happen very easily. It's all encapsulated right here. The inputs that we're only going to take one input. We want to generate it for our addition. So, I'm not to this point. I want to do inputs. The addition of type addition is all that's coming in. From an output perspective, we're going to display the final HTML. We're really going to store it elsewhere as well, but we'll display it here. So the final HTML is a token we'll create along the way final HTML. So the input is going to be an addition, the output is going to be some HTML. The process is the fun part. The idea here is that we need, and I'll walk us through it, we need to read, we want to acquire all the tokens that are going to be necessary for expansion. So those are the template tokens, the publication tokens. We're going to want to handle the header from the template. Then we're going to use that addition contents and loop through all of them. For each one of those, we'll read the content and the component desired and build up some HTML from that and keep adding it to the final HTML. And so we loop through all those, then finally add the footer. And at the end, we'll store it back to the addition. So it's usable in any number of ways, but we'll also output it. So that's where we're going. We're going to acquire a lot of data and then loop through and build it from the addition content. So the first thing that we need to do, realize this, the addition, because this comes in as an addition, all the fields from addition are available immediately. We don't have to read those, but we do have to read the template that's related to it. So we'll read the template and get everything that comes from the template. And the record ID is something that's linked from the addition. Addition template, and this is going to be output to template. So that's the first piece of information. We're also going to want the publication, and that this is the whole purpose of our last execute get publication from addition. So if we have an addition, we can get the publication. We can pass addition and get the publication ID out. And we're going to want to read that publication so we have all the fields from the publication. So we're going from the ID to all the fields. So that is the publication ID that came out of the last step, and this is going to give us publication tokens. I'm going to refer you all the way back to the beginning. We were looking at those templates and they were using things like publication : name. This makes it available to expand here in a minute, and that's how we're going to be able to do that. So now it's time to start dealing with our header, and so we'll use a create update tokens. The thing that we're building is final HTML, and so we'll start building final HTML, and it's going to come from the template header. So final HTML gets the header right here, and I'll put a nice comment on this so we can follow along. Starting the final HTML using the header. The next thing we're going to do is start working through this is the part where we start adding all of our contents using the addition contents. So we're going to use a create list from SQL to get our addition contents. The addition content list is what we're creating. I like to make comments that match what's going on inside. So the list name we're creating is addition content list. The SQL for this is, and again, I'll go over it. It's pulling everything from addition content, only the ones that are for our addition. So we'll bind data to the addition, and we're getting it from the addition input variable. So we're getting the ID, the addition, the rank, the template component, all from, and the content item, all from addition content. This is just giving us all our stuff in order, everything that we had, same data that was there in our selected items, and it's giving it to us in the list. We're going to loop through each of those. And so we're going to use a for each. Spell it right, for each, execute actions for each list entry. My comment on this is going to be execute actions for each addition content list. So that's the list name that we're processing. And so then the question is, what do we want it to do? Well, we want it to read the content. So we'll do a read content item. And the record ID is always going to come from this same addition content list, and it's the content item that got returned. So this tells us exactly what one to return, and we're going to call this content. Again, this matches the token that we used in the template, so this makes it possible to just automatically do the expansion. The next thing we need to do is to get the template component so that we can know what it's supposed to look like, what we're going to inject into. So we want to read the template component. The one that we want to read is the addition content list. The field is template component. That matches our entity. And we're going to put this in component. So here's where all the magic happens, right here. We're going to create and update a token called new HTML. We're going to fill this up with component HTML. That's a field out of this thing here. We read the component. It's called component. We get the component HTML and put it here. And then we're going to change this not just once, but we'll iterate through it 3 times. This says that after it expands this HTML, so it gets the component, and then it's going to go and reevaluate it, and then even reevaluate it again. So all the tokens that are available to this point are, if we call them by name inside of this thing, they get expanded to their values that we read off the data. And then after expanding all that, we want to put this on the final HTML. So we'll use another create update tokens. We got it. I'm going to go into this one again. It looks, so we have the new HTML. Now we want to put, we're going to add that to the final HTML. So final HTML is going to be the same value, final HTML, but then we're also going to add this new HTML. This is what we just expanded. So this is where we keep appending final HTML.
How did you decide on the 3 iterations in the
Great question. It probably could be 2, and I wanted to be absolutely certain that I didn't.
Okay.
So in this case, I would be happy for it to I want everything to expand. I could have used 9. It was arbitrary. 2 would probably have done it.
Okay.
So now this action is going to do most of our work, and the rarely used thing here, but I'll add it. We can add a comment right there, a call out that might help us. The next thing we want to do is to be able to add the footer. This is another create update tokens that is going to update our final HTML, and we want it to be equal to the final HTML plus the template footer. Now this also needs to be expanded, and the values from um, our tokens are still available here, at least the primary ones. Where this would be inconsistent if we tried to put content things because we're outside of the content loop, but it would be able to do the publication and edition stuff. So it'll be here. And let's see. Oh, I have not. So it's added here to the right, and I keep going. The last thing that I want to do is to get all this work that we've done stored back in the database. So I want to partially update the edition. And the edition I want to do is the same one we've been working on all along. And we want to update the final publication HTML with our variable that we've been building up, final HTML. And so this is where it stores it on the record. And then we end. It's also outputting it here in the output, but let's save and test this out. So now all I have to do is point to the edition and run this thing, and we can see that it's generated final HTML with this header and the article and the footer. All that happened. And if we go back to our preview form, because we're pushing the preview out here during the initialization, we're seeing our article out in the test. So now if we were to wire this generate preview to this, to the workflow we just created, it'll be all very interactive. So let's go back to our preview form and again, refresh. I created a new workflow. It's not going to know about it until we refresh. We got a generate preview button. We can add the generate edition preview and pass it our edition, which is going to be somewhere here on my clipboard. Really get edition ID. So it's the same one that we've been working on here, get edition ID. And
you've got an extra bracket there. So make sure you
thank you. I'm a little blinded by the light here. And then we're going to put this right into our preview field. So as soon as things get generated, it'll go to the preview field automatically. Then we'll add an Ajax so that it'll update the form. So this is going to let this simply wires in this button. So we go back to our selected content. We've got, let's trim this down so it's only doing one thing and then see what it's going to do. So we do our preview button and we have one topic, the plant and app. Let's say we add healthcare. And hit our preview button, and now we have healthcare. So two things in the output. So I believe that there's one more thing that I'm going to do to make this all really work, and then we'll call it from there. In our selected content, we are showing the default component. Um, we went up to a lot of works to be able to find the default component, but we want you to be able to design as many different templates as you want, and you can create as many as you want, but now we need you to be able to select them. So we need an edit form on this page that lets you change this to a different component. And so I'm going to build an edit form, and that'll be the last thing for today. In adding, this is a custom form. So again, we're adding it to the page. We're going to put it somewhere wherever we like. Doesn't really matter. This time it's not going to be part of a tab, but rather something that's hidden. So it doesn't really matter where we put it, but we will we'll set it up so that it's something that comes up from as a pop-up when we click the appropriate button. So let me find out what this on track here. This is going to be our edit selected item form. We'll give it a nice name. The settings, and this is a little bit tricky, I'll point it out. We are eventually, instead of it being visible all the time, we want it to be visible manually. But there's some settings that I like to do that are only available when you bring it up in pop-up. So we'll temporarily set it to in pop-up. I'm going to set it to, I want it to be 50%, and I'm going to give it a name. So this, we've setting these values, and now I'm going to set it back to manual so it's available to be opened up. So this form is going to be able to be opened up whenever we want to, but it's going to come up in 50% of the screen. And as before, I'm going to add a static text that just says hello so we can see it at work. And we can test out that it is working. And then we'll go back to actually providing the functionality. So this is something that we've got to find our way back in again. Into our issues. We have now an edition ID. We have selected content. This is where we want to be able to add an edit button. So I'm going to go ahead and add the edit button right now. We're changing our selected content to add an edit button. Button. This is going to be at an item button because we want to edit an item. And I really just want a pencil icon for this, so we won't give it a title, but we'll call it the edit button. Doesn't matter what we call it, as long as it's unique. Edit this item. I want it to be outline primary. I'm going to select an icon that is a pencil. So let's see, I'll use this one. And the actions that are associated with this is just opening that form pop-up. Open form pop-up, stop execution. We pick our pop-up, which is the edit selected item form. We want it to initialize. Every time it starts, we want that form to go through its initialization. And from a query string perspective, we want to pass to it what thing we are editing. So that's going to be passed as the edit content ID, and it's the ID of the record that we're on. I don't want the user to be able to close by clicking outside or clicking escape. I want them to click the X, so I'm going to turn that off and hit save. So let's give it a try. We refresh the page. We now have an edit icon. When we click it, it says hello. It opens at 50% of the width. We can't click outside, we can't click escape, but we can click the X. So our form is working. Now we just got to wire it to do the work that we want it to do. So let's do some basic fields. And actually, the only thing that we want it to, well, let's get it open. So it's the edit selected item form. We want it to, on our static text here, we want it to display some stuff. And I want to display where we're editing so that instead of saying hello, we'll say, for example, that we're editing some piece of content and some addition content ID. So we need to acquire this information as part of our events, but at least this is going to tell us where we're working. So in our events, we'll say that we want to read the addition content. The one we want to read is the one that we passed to it in that open pop-up action. So that is we're able to get that directly from the query string. So get the addition content ID that matches what we did in that action. And the output token will say we'll go to the addition content. That will hold now everything from the addition content. And from that, we can get our content. So this is going to give us access to the things that we need to edit. And so we'll add read content. So it's the addition content item. And we'll put that into content. So now addition content and content are available. So we go back to our fields and see that we can get the addition content ID, content name. And so let's test that out real quick. So see that our form is now getting to the right data. So we're editing item number 6, which is the DNN Summit 2025 item. If we clicked on this one, it'll be number 8. So we've got a nice introduction to what we're doing. Now we need the field that we're going to edit. And really, the only thing that we need to edit is the component. In my original one, I had rank. I think you saw it, but we don't need to do rank since we implemented the drag and drop. So we want to drop down here, and its name's going to be component. We want to provide an initial value, which is going to be, again, out of that addition content. It's the template component. So we had read that, now we can select it. And now we got to have a selection. This is SQL query, a selection of all the template components from the template that we're using. Isn't it nice that we have this pre-built? This is that third time I was talking about. It's the same join logic. We go from template through the list of pattern to get to the template component. And we only, oh, this is not good. This says that the template ID is number 1. We really need the template ID from wherever we're editing. So this is, again, this get, nope. template component is available. It's the same one here. We have edition content. It's the actually making me do the work here. SQL console so that we can browse this. Edition content has a template component, and we have read edition component, I believe, so we can copy that. We have an edition content, yes, available to us. So we can, in here, we'll need the edition. We need all the things from the we need the template. Tell you what, rather than wasting your time, I know that we can fake this and make it work, and then we'll improve this later. So we know that we're working with template ID and template ID 1. And so we're just going to hard code this to template ID 1. This really needs to be dynamic to work from whatever template is in question. And I got to work to pass that in. All right. Let's see if we have it working. We have a component. We have a list of components that are available to us based on that template and that hard-coded template 1. It really should be dynamic. And so then the next final thing is that we need to add a save button. And the save button needs to update our edition content. Update the edition content. The one that we're going to do is the same one that's off the query string in the first place, the one that we're working with. Put her on the right line or it won't work right. And we're going to update the template component to be whatever it was that they just selected off the page, off the control. We're then going to, whoop, not here, refresh the listing to show the change, and that's the selected content listing. And we want to close our pop-up. And stop execution. The pop-up we're closing is ourselves here. So with all that in place, this should give us the ability to change the component. So we can change the DNN 2025 to a title component instead of a default component. And now when we generate the preview, it's far more advanced because it's using a more involved component. And If we change this one to a title component, now the newsletter gets even bigger. Generate preview. We have the join Plantain app, and then we revolutionize healthcare. And then maybe we don't like the order, so we can put healthcare first and preview again. Okay, so things left to do. That one token really should be dynamic instead of hard-coded to one. And with our templates, we've been pretty simple. We just made some very simple tables, but with I will just demonstrate from our pre-built system. The templates can be far more advanced. So we go to templates and look at these components that I built. I built ones that were like a left title, right article template that had all of the parts and pieces necessary to do the images. It was far more content and bringing in all the different links and URLs as part of a hyperlink, for example, and opening a new tab and things like that. So we'll end it there. We basically got there. We showed how to inject, acquire all the data necessary, and then inject them into tokens, save them aside, and so we have email content that would be suitable to just be pushed right into an email action and potentially to be then feed your marketing system. And now it gets to the point where it says you can be as involved as you want with your content and content blocks to reuse content in a variety of ways. Thank you for those of you that held on through this extended session, but I wanted to get it out and done and out there on YouTube, and then we'll go on to another great topic in 2 weeks. I believe Patrick will be leading and has that one. I think he'll be of big interest. So thank you for joining us this time, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.